Well, as I said, when the ICJ ruling came down on South Africa's request to order emergency provisions for the people of Gaza, which was really a very mild and inadequate ruling, basically the ICJ said that Israel should take steps to ensure that they were not committing genocide. As I said at that time, the response to that ruling was always going to be that another resolution would be proposed in the UN for a ceasefire. Since the only way that measures could be taken to prevent Israel from committing a genocide would be for there to be a ceasefire. So Algeria called for this, saying that the ICJ ruling had to be taken to mean that the court was, in fact, calling for a ceasefire. And so that's what Algeria has asked the United Nations to order. Now, the United States has already said that when the vote takes place on Tuesday, if the resolution is worded as it was originally proposed, that is, if the original wording is not changed, and the vote is called according to what Algeria wrote in that resolution, well, they said that they're going to veto it. They're going to veto a demand for a ceasefire again. And they're going to do that. They're going to refuse to allow the global consensus in favor of a ceasefire to be implemented while Israel is on the brink of launching a full-scale attack on the last parcel of land in Gaza that they haven't already decimated, Rafa. Israel is threatening to attack Rafa with over 1 million civilian refugees, displaced people, people who have fled from northern and central Gaza, escaping Israeli death and destruction, Zionist death and destruction using American weapons, American fighter jets, American attack helicopters, American bombs and missiles, and they're going to carpet bomb those innocent people who've been cornered in Rafah. And the whole world is demanding that Israel not do it. Everyone is telling them not to attack Rafah. But the United States is saying that if the UN orders Israel to stop attacking, then they'll veto that. In other words, the United States is going to tell Israel to go ahead. They're going to tell Israel to go ahead with genocide. Go ahead with wantonly murdering countless innocent civilians in Rafah who are huddled in refugee tents, who are starving, and who are, all of whom are, the last surviving members of their families. The U.S. is telling Israel to finish them off. It's genocide by veto. The United States has announced to the world that they're going to inflict a genocidal veto against the helpless people of Gaza on Tuesday. And they said that they're going to do it. You won't believe this. They said that they're going to do it because they don't like the wording of the ceasefire proposal. Imagine. Because they don't like the wording. They're approving the massacre of thousands of people, and they aren't ashamed to use semantics as their justification. Meanwhile, official after official in the United States has come out against the planned attack on Rafah. Even Joe Biden said that Israel shouldn't do it. They say this out of one side of their mouth, but out of the other side of their mouth, they say that they'll veto the ceasefire. This is next level hypocrisy. I mean, we're used to them not practicing what they preach and not preaching what they practice, but now they're not even preaching what they preach about what they practice. They're saying, yes, you're right. We agree with you. We agree with you, world, that Israel shouldn't commit genocide, but we don't appreciate the way you say it. They shouldn't commit crimes against humanity. They shouldn't commit war crimes. You know, they shouldn't perpetrate genocide against the Palestinians. We agree with all of that, but we don't like your tone. Look at the hubris. Look at the belligerence of that. The U.S. doesn't mind telling the world that they're willing to watch innocent people get slaughtered because America wants to be pedantic. Well, you know, there's another set of words. There's another piece of phrasing that America might not like. There's some more wording that the U.S. might object to, and it's in the United Nations Charter. The charter that they already agreed to, the contract that they already signed, and that's Article 6, which says that a member of the United Nations, which has persistently violated the principles contained in the present charter, may be expelled from the organization by the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council. Maybe you should have read that contract more carefully before you signed it. You should have been just as circumspect about the wording of the of that UN document as you are about the wording of a resolution against genocide, because we read it. And more people all around the world are reading it, from Marrakesh to Manchester, from Cape Town to Kuala Lumpur, from Davos to Dusseldorf. And when we read, persistently violates the principles of the Charter, why, that sounds like what the United States would write in their bio if that whole country had a social media account. If the people of the world could give America a Yelp review, that's what we'd say. Persistently violates the UN Charter. The grassroots globally are collectively recognizing that the presence of the United States in the United Nations, and more specifically, with their seat on the Security Council, with their unilateral supremacist veto power, that this is the linchpin that holds the machinery of genocidal Zionist aggression together. Remove that linchpin, and the whole Israeli war machine falls apart. Over the past 5 decades, the United States has vetoed 53 resolutions against Israeli violence. They've used their veto power more times to insulate Israel from global condemnation than for any other purpose. America's veto is nothing but a shoot-to-kill order against the Palestinians, and it operates as cover fire for Israel to shield it from any international accountability and from ever having to make peace with the region. Yes, America has used its veto power to veto peace, to veto justice, to veto human rights, to veto essentially every principle that the UN Charter claims to stand for. Why, you could make a case for persistent violation of the UN Charter, the UN Charter's principles by the United States, just by citing nothing more than their use of the veto. Never mind all of America's own crimes, or should I say the crimes that they committed directly, because you have their own war crimes, their own crimes against humanity perpetrated by the United States alone, and then you have all of the crimes that they commit via their proxies, such as Israel's crimes, because Israel's crimes are America's crimes, and everyone knows it. Israel's just America's henchman. The U.S. arms, trains, and funds them, and protects them, and covers for them. Why, it would be the easiest RICO prosecution in history if Israel and America were just run-of-the-mill mafia thugs. If Israel is being charged with genocide, then the United States should be right next to them in the dock with charges against them of conspiracy to commit genocide, orchestration of genocide, and profiting from genocide. The entire relationship between America and Israel is an established pattern of racketeering and violent criminal activity. Literally everything that makes a RICO case, they do it. Bribery, kidnapping, murder, money laundering, terrorism, fraud, embezzlement, trafficking, everything. This is the whole nature of their relationship. And what's more, they do it writ large and out in the open. And one of the key elements in their criminal enterprise between Israel and America, one of the key elements, just like mobsters, is having officials on the payroll, having officials in their pockets, whether it's through bribery or through extortion or intimidation or what have you, so that when you do try to bring a case against them, they own the judge, they own the courts, just like they own the United Nations. Why, America should be required to abstain from any vote on any resolution pertaining to Israel, because a country isn't supposed to be allowed to vote when the matter pertains to themselves. And Israel and America are a single enterprise. It's a single criminal organization. It's a single mafia empire. America is committing genocide in Gaza, and they're just using the Jewish regiment to do it. They shouldn't be allowed to vote on the ceasefire or anything else that involves their henchmen. So yes, as long as the United States of America is a member of the UN, well, then the UN can never be what it was supposed to be designed to be and to do. But it will only ever be just an instrument to do the exact opposite. America makes sure that the United Nations will never be an instrument of peace and stability. It will never be a tool to prevent war and conflict. It will just be a mute assembly of powerless nations who are gagged and bound and gagged by rules and protocols that the boss never has to follow. Helpless observers of American aggression and impunity. All the countries of the world send their ambassadors to New York just to affirm American supremacy and exceptionalism, and to reiterate their own subjugation, and irrelevance. But the people of the world, the populations of the countries who send their ambassadors to New York, are fed up. They're fed up and they're waking up. And like I said, We've read the UN Charter. We've read Article 6. We've read Article 5. We've read Article 4. And we've read Article 24. And we know perfectly well that the United States can be expelled from the United Nations. And that's what the grassroots globally is calling for. And if the UN decides that they are either unwilling or unable to heed that grassroots call, then I think it's going to become very hard to convince global South countries to continue sending their ambassadors to the UN, because it will have shown itself to be an entirely captured and corrupted and colonized institution. If you can't enforce your own membership rules, if you can't eject from the UN and from the Security Council, the greatest threat to international security, if you can't even act to halt a genocide because the perpetrators of the genocide can overrule you in your own organization, well, then that's an organization that has no justification to exist.